let's go to New Japan for this one because they recently introduced their own women's division. Now, their parent company, New Japan's parent company, Bushi Road, also owns Stardom. Now, what do you think they should have introduced a women's division in New Japan, or do you think they should have kept it separate with just Stardom and New Japan being separate? Which do you think is better? Which do you prefer?
So okay, a lot of people do equate Stardom to the women's division of New Japan, which I don't think that's quite right. Just because they're owned by the same parent company, it's almost like saying that, like, oh, if, ROH can not have a women's division because it's owned by AEW, who does have a women's division. Like, that just doesn't really make sense to me personally. And I have been kind of passively fuming about it for years. I've been saying that in the century 21 of God Jesus, like, it's just impossible for a respectable, internationally recognized, modern wrestling company to run without a women's division. Like, that is just impossible in my mind. And people are trying to justify it with, oh, that's just their culture, but it's not even freaking Saudi Arabia. Women's wrestling is very, very developed in Japan, and very popular too, for that matter. Like, you can't just chalk it up to culture. And to me, that's never an argument. Like, oh, their culture is not featuring women. Like, that, then I don't really respect that culture. Like, it's just not how cultures are supposed to work, I don't think. And I do think that, just to be a well-rounded company, it's not even that, oh, is it going to be good? Does it feed the vibe of the product? Like, those are all secondary questions to me. Just to be considered, just to be, on the level, you have to have a women's division. And especially since there's been an agreement with AEW, and especially since we've seen just now unprecedented instances where there were, WWE people who are allowed to compete in New Japan, maybe even if it's a one-off thing, it's unprecedented. They have to keep up. They have to be on the level. And I say this with love. I do really like New Japan. And I don't want to sound like a hater just for the sake of hating. But it's just that, to me, it's impossible. Like, we've had this past, say, 5 years, we've had maybe like 2 women regularly featured on the program, and if that, as managers. And it's just, just unheard of. It's just not a good thing for any wrestling company in the 21st century.
And now that we're talking about New Japan, we're going to discuss the rumor, the report that maybe Sasha Banks may be joining New Japan, and apparently, according to the same reports, might have commanded a pretty hefty price tag. So, unload. What are your thoughts on the Sasha Banks New Japan situation?
I mean, good for her. It's also that since they're just starting their women's division, someone like Sasha, who is very much a mainstream type superstar and who is recognizable to an international viewer, she was in the Star Wars franchise, right? Who else would bring eyes to the product better than her? And as for her getting the check, it is rumored and it is reported that part of the reason why she left WWE was that she wasn't getting that equal pay to other top stars. So, it's all coming along for her. And also, I feel like the common denominator for people leaving WWE has been, oh, I've earned my money, I've done my business, and now that I'm done with the business, let me do wrestling. Like, a lot of people have been like really leaning into their love for wrestling as a sport, in a sense. And if she's managing to do both, to do the wrestling and also get the money, I mean, great, good for her. And again, if she does that, that's a precedent, and that's like a history-making moment for all women in wrestling. So that would be awesome to see.
Yeah, according to some reports, she's going to get paid more than Jericho did for going to New Japan.
Jericho denies.
I would too.
You're right. I think he said something. I think he said that wasn't true.
I wouldn't be surprised. But that does, when you said bringing up, you just mentioned it and it made me think of this. When you talked about people saying, okay, I got paid and now I'm going to just do the wrestling. But what about in the case of Mandy Rose, who, evidently from her, side hustle job is getting paid way more than WWE money, which I found surprising. And Sasha too. And when it comes to women, same thing. Sasha wasn't getting paid the major bucks. She wasn't. I don't believe is in the top 10 of the highest paid performers. And in my opinion, as far as I know, if I understand correctly, she's not paid more than Ronda Rousey, which I think Ronda gets paid too much.
Absolutely.
I think Sasha should be paid more than Ronda, in my opinion. But I know not everyone agrees with that. So
no, Ronda is just it's again a whole topic in itself. I really don't feel like she adds anything.